Uh, Mine is the new stuff. So let's go back to Vav Hey.
Okay. Um, yeah, I find it. Right here. Okay, well, okay. These are the things for which no oath is imposed. Slaves, legal documents, land, and consecrated property. Neither is there any twofold payment, no fourfold, no fivefold payment. And unpaid trauma does not swear, or paid trauma does not pay. And Reb Shimon says, concerning consecrated things for which one is responsible, an oath is imposed, but concerning those for which one is not responsible, no oath is imposed. Reb Meir says some things are attached to the ground, but are not treated as land. But the sages do not concur with him. How so? If one claims, I delivered to you 10 fruit-laden vines, and the other one says they were only five, the mayor declares him liable to an oath. For we come and say anything attached to the ground is treated as land. There is no oath except in regard to something defined by measure, weight, or number. How so? If one claims, I delivered to you a full house, or I delivered to you a full purse, and the other one says, I do not know, but whatever you put down you are taking, he is exempt. If this one says up to the projecting beam and this one says up to the window, he's liable. If one lends to another on security and the security was lost, if he says to him, I lent you on a cellar on it and it was worth a shekel, and the other one says, not so, you lent me a cellar on it and it was worth a cellar, he is exempt. But if he says, I lent you a cellar on it and it was worth a shekel, and the other one says, not so, you lent me a cellar on it and it was worth 3 dinners, he is liable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that's did you do the end above? No, because that doesn't. No, there's more. There's Zion as
There is.
well.
There is. If he says to him, right, right, if you lent me a cellar on it and it was worth two, and the other one says, no, not so, I lent you a cellar on it and it was worth a cellar, he's exempt. But if he says you lent me a cellar on it and it was worth two, and the other one says, not so, I lent you a cellar on it and it was worth 5 dinners, he's liable. Now, who swears? The one who had the deposit, lets this one swear, and the other one produced the deposit. Okay.
Okay. So now Perek Zion opens with a general principle of here. In general, the practice of taking an oath is in order to exempt somebody from paying. So, for example, if you have a shomer who's a shomer chinam and he swears that the item was stolen, which means he's not liable. So he swears in order to exempt himself from payment. But but there are a few exceptional cases which the Mishnah is now going to enumerate in this parak, where the oath is given in order to extract payment. Okay, in other words, the claimant has to swear rather than the defendant.
Right. Okay.
Okay. The Elon Nishbain V'Nofin. So here are your exceptional cases. Okay. The Hasachir, the employee, a Nigzal, somebody who had something stolen from them, a Nechbal, somebody who was injured, and somebody whose counter litigant is suspected of not taking Shevuos seriously. The Hachen Bani al Pinkaso, and the shopkeeper on his account ledger. Okay. So now the Mishnayos are going to enumerate all of these cases. So each Mishnah, we're going to dedicate one Mishnah to each case. And the first one comes in the first Mishnah. Hasachir, so an employee. Side, what's the case? Amar lo taili schari sheyesh li biyadcha. The employee says to the employer, give me my salary for the day. Hu omer, nasati. He says, what are you talking about? I've given you. V'halo omer lo natalti. I've never taken my salary. You haven't paid me. So now they come to court, and this one says yes, and this one says no. They say to the employee, "Hu nishba v'notel." Take a shvur that you haven't received your pay, and now and they force the employer to pay on this. So this is a very exceptional case that all he has to do is take a shvur that he hasn't been paid, and he can extract payment from the employer. Now, why is this? This is because in this particular situation, the employer has got lots of employees. So he's sitting at the end of the day handing out salaries to everyone who comes to him. His head isn't in the situation of did he get. He's just saying, I'm paying a whole bunch of employees. whereas each individual employee only sees what's in front of him, and he knows whether he got paid or not. So the employer feels like, listen, I paid 100 people today. I'm sure I paid you. Whereas he's saying, I'm the one who didn't pay. Okay, so he's got because he's got that perspective, and he can take the shvua and claim the money. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says differently. Ad shetahei sham miktas hodah. He says the only time this can work is if the employer has a partial admission. So he links it back to the Modi b'miktas, but instead of allowing the employer to swear I have paid you this much, he allows the so it will say okay, Amalo, tell you owe me 50 dinars for today's work. I've already paid you 25. Okay, so he says I've already paid you 25. Now, normally in a Modi b'miktas, what they would do is to tell the employer, okay, take a shvua that you paid the 25 and you'll only have to pay 25. Okay. Whereas in this case, they give the employee the opportunity to say, I've only received 25, in order to force the employer to pay another 25. Okay, so that's Rabbi Yehuda's concession to the employer, to the employee in the case of a Modi b'miktas. But the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda. You don't need a Modi b'miktas for an employee to force money out of his employer. Even if he denies it completely, we allow the employee to swear and force the employer to pay. Okay. So what about somebody who's had something stolen from him? What's the case? So let's say you've got a creditor who muscled his way into the debtor's home to see if there was any collateral that he could take or something like that, and he did it without authority. And they're witnesses. He says he brings witnesses to say that this guy came into my house. He forced his way in, and he came out with a suspicious bulge under his jacket, and I want to know what that is. Okay. Keli Natalta, you took my silver candlesticks. I went back in and my silver candlesticks are gone. Never. I never took anything. So now the person whose house was thus broken into can take a shvua that this guy went in and he took 50 shekels, 100 shekels worth of stuff from my house, and he can force the money out of the person who broke in. Why? Because this is a knas. It's a penalty that they're giving against somebody who forces his way into somebody else's house. Say, okay, you did that. Now you pay the price because you did something that was unacceptable, that was wrong, and now we're going to allow him to take the shvua and extract whatever he wants out of you. Okay. So that's the knas that we're putting on it. Rabbi Yehuda again comes and says, miktas hodah. He says there's got to be a Modi b'miktas somewhere in this in order to allow such a situation. You took 2 candlesticks. I only took 1. So again, Rabbi Yehuda says that there's got to be some kind of Modi b'miktas in order to be able to allow him to take the shvua. But again, the halacha doesn't follow him. Okay, are you with it?
Yeah, I'm with it.
Okay, cool. Gimel. Okay, so what's the case of somebody who was injured? So he's got witnesses. So he comes, so the 2 of them went into a dark alley. They've got witnesses that the 2 of them went into a dark alley, and the one and he came out all beaten up and bruised. Amalo. So if he had witnesses that this guy actually beat him up, then there's nothing to talk about. Of course, he has to pay. But all we have is the circumstantial evidence that he came out from being secluded with this guy and he was all beaten up. Amalo, chavaltavi, and he comes to the time, you beat me up. The Huomer, no chavalti, I never did it. In other words, you injured yourself like this. I don't know. You went and slammed yourself against the wall and did whatever you did, but I didn't do this. So then the claimant can take the shvua and he can force payment out of the aggressor. Okay. so so again, the reason again is that is for a knas that we so the Rambam at least says that this is the reason for this is because of knas, because people who are who cause damage like this should have a penalty to pay. However, there are others who say that the reason is not because of a knas, but because it's just completely implausible that a person would beat himself up. How's he gonna do? How's he gonna do that? I mean, it's still possible, but nonetheless, if there is, so therefore the and therefore the chachamim. So this is the Ravad who says that therefore the chachamim believe the injured party as long as he gives an oath. However, if there's clear proof that the aggressor must have injured him, for example, let's say he's got bite marks between his shoulder blades. There's no way. There's nobody else who could have done it, and he didn't bite himself. Okay, so okay, and there was right in that case he can take the payment even without making a shvuah because the circumstantial evidence is way too strong, and therefore he wouldn't even need to take a shvuah in order to extract this payment. Again, Rabbi Yehuda says, sham miktas hoda'ah. How do you get a modiv miktas with this? Amalo chabalta b'shtayim. You gave me two of these wounds over here. I only hit you once. How can I give you two wounds? So there he's modiv miktas, and again the defendant can swear, but once again, halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda, and you don't need a modiv miktas to claim. All right. So then back to Daled base.
Okay, let me just fix this over here. And got it. Okay. Daled base is okay. Here we go. Okay. They are liable for the willful transgression of the oath, as well as for its inadvertent transgression, coupled with the willful transgression of the testimony, but they are not liable for its inadvertent transgression. Now, what are they liable for? The willful transgression of the oath? No. Now, what are they liable for? The willful transgression of the oath? A variable sin offering. What is the case of the oath and the testimony? If he says to two, come and testify for me, and they reply, we swear that we do not know any testimony for you, or they say to him, we do not know any testimony for you, and he says, I adore you, and they reply, amen, they are liable. But if you adore them 5 times outside of court, and they came to the court and to confess, they are exempt. If they denied, they are liable for each one. If they adored them 5 times before the court, and they denied, they're liable only once. Rabbi Shimon says, what is the reason? Because they cannot retract and confess. If they both denied simultaneously, both are liable consecutively. The first one is liable and the second one is exempt. If one denied and one admitted, the denier is liable. If there were 2 pairs of witnesses and the first one denied and then the second one denied, both are liable because the testimony could be upheld by either of them.
Okay. Sanhedrin Zayin Hay.
The blasphemer is not liable unless he utters the divine name. Said Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, each day they examine the witnesses by means of a pseudonym. May Yossi smite you. May Yossi smite Yossi. When the case is completed, they may not kill based on a pseudonym. Rather, they send everyone out and ask the most eminent of them and say to him, state explicitly what you heard. And he says, the judges stand on their feet and render their garments and do not repair them. The second says, I too heard as he did. And the third says, I too heard as he did. The idolater is liable whether he serves slaughters, burns an offering, pours a libation, bows down, accepts it upon himself as a deity, or says to it, you are my God. However, one who embraces, kisses, sweeps, sprinkles, washes, anoints, clothes, and eschews transgression to the negative commandment. One who vows in its name and upholds in its name transgresses a negative commandment, and defecating to Balpur is its service. Throwing a stone at Marcolis, this is its service. One who gives of his children to Molech is not liable unless he hands him over to Molech and passes him through the fire. If he hands him over to Molech but does not pass him over the fire, he passes him over the fire, but not this hand him over to Molech, he is not liable. If he hands him over to Molech and passes him over the fire. A practitioner of Ov is a necromancer who speaks from his armpit, and a Yidoni is one who speaks through his mouth. These receive stoning, and one acquires with them transgressions or prohibition.
Yeah.
Comment.
Here you go.
If a pit belongs to two partners and the first one passes by it and does not cover it, and the second one passes by and does not cover it, and the second one is liable. If the first one covers it and the second one comes by and finds it uncovered and does not cover it, the second one is liable. If he covers it properly and a bull or a donkey falls into it and dies, he is exempt. If he does not cover it properly and a bull or a donkey falls into it and dies, he's liable. It fell forward because of the sound of digging, he is liable. Backward because of the sound of digging, he's exempt. Well, if an ox was the trappings falls into it and they break, or a donkey with the trappings and they tear, he is liable for the animal but exempt for the trappings. If a bull that was deaf, foolish, or young falls into it, he is liable. A male child, a female child, a male slave, or a female slave, they are exempt. A bull and all other animals are alike as regards falling into a pit. Separation from Mount Sinai. The twofold payments, meaning a loss, unloading, muzzling, climb, and a Sabbath. The same applies to wild beasts and fowl. If so, why is ox and donkey stated? Because Scripture speaks of the usual. Okay. If one brings a sheep into a fold and locks the door before it properly, but gets out and damages, he's exempt. If he does not lock the door before it properly and he gets out and damages, he is liable. If it breaks at night or the robbers break it and it goes out and damages, he's exempt. Should robbers take it out, the robbers are liable. Okay. Honest. Okay. Base should. We may not decree a community fast on Rosh Chodesh, Hanukkah, or Purim. However, if they already had commenced a series of fasts, they may not interrupt it. This is the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel. But Meir says, although Rabbi Gamliel said that he may not interrupt the series, he agrees that they should not complete the fast. The same is true of Tisha B'Av and which falls on the eve of Sabbath. The order of the fast mentioned above applies only if the first rain was withheld. However, if plans change abnormally, we sound the shofar at once because of them. Similarly, if rains were interrupted between one rain and the next for 40 days, we sound the shofar at once because this represents a calamity of food shortage. If suitable rain fell for crops and it did not fall for trees, but for trees but did not fall for crops, for both, but did not fulfilling the water holes, ditches, and clays, we sound the shofar at once. Similarly,
no, we don't do Gimel, but in Aleph, I think that's the case that we had this year, where we had the early rains, and then the rain stopped for. Did the rain stop for 40 days? I'm not sure if the rain stopped for 40 days, but I think that's the reason why they immediately said, "Okay, we need to start davening for rain again."
Right.
That was the situation. Anyways,
Gimel.
No.
So we're finished?
Yeah, we're done.
Oh.
Demai.
Goodbye. Gimel. Reb Eliezer says one need not designate Maisa Ani of Demai, but the Chachamim say he designates it but does not need separate. If one designated Truma Maisa of Demai and Maisa Ani of Maisa Ani of definitely untied produce, he may not take them on the Sabbath. The priest or a poor person may be accustomed to eat with him. They may come and eat, provided that he informs them. If one says to him, who is not trustworthy in regard to Maestros, buy from me from one and who is trustworthy, and from him who tithes, he is not trusted. From so-and-so, he is trusted. If he went to buy from him and he said to him, I did not find him and I brought you from another who is trustworthy, he is not trusted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Elam.
If that right? Yeah. If one was whole and so if it was whole and so too a box and so too a flask, if a sheretz is in it, the container on the oven is tahor. But if the sheretz is in the oven, food within the container is tahor. If they develop the whole, that which was intended for foods is measured with olives. That which was intended for liquids is measured with liquids, and with that which was intended for both, we apply it to it the more stringent measure. That is enough to take in liquid. Regarding shareda that is placed in the mouth of an oven and sinks into it, it has no rim. And it has no rim. The sheretz, if a sheretz is in it, the shareda oven is tame. If the sheretz is in the oven, food that is in the shareda is tame. But only utensils protect from the tuma of an earthenware utensil. Regarding a barrel that is full of tahor beverages and is placed beneath the floor of an oven, if a sheretz is in the oven, the barrel and the beverage is tahor. But if the barrel was inverted and its mouth open to the airspace of the oven, if the sheretz is in the oven, the beverage sufficient to moisten that is on the bottom of the barrel is tahor. Regarding a pot that is placed in an oven, if a sheretz is in the oven, the pot is tahor. For an earthenware that the use of utensils is not rendered, an earthenware utensils not render utensils tame. If there was in the pot beverage sufficient to moisten, the beverage became tame and transmitted tuma. Thus, this pot says, that which you made tummy did not make me tummy, and yet you have made me tummy.
Right. So that's always the funny thing about liquids is that they have a counterintuitive property that even though they're a lower level of tumah themselves, they are able to make things tame to a higher level. That is, I think that's a din d'Rabbanan. It's not that's not the halacha d'oraisa, but nonetheless, that's what we have to work with. Okay.
A great day. Have a great Shabbat, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Wonderful Shabbos.
Bye.